My father called me worthless at graduation. 5 years later, I sent him my law degree from prison. I was 17 when I realized my father had never seen me as a son, but as a walking disappointment. Alexander Reeves had treated every achievement of mine as a fluke and every setback as confirmation of my inherent worthlessness. Nothing I did was ever good enough for the founder and CEO of Reeves Financial Services. So when I graduated second in my class with a full scholarship to Princeton, I foolishly thought he might finally show pride. Instead, as we stood in the school parking lot after the ceremony, he looked at my diploma with disdain. "Second place is just the first loser, Dominic," he said. "You had every advantage and still couldn't make valedictorian. Let's be realistic. You'll never amount to anything." He checked his watch impatiently. "I need to get back to the office. The company doesn't run itself while I waste time at these things." He walked away without another word, leaving me standing alone as other families celebrated around me. That night, something inside me finally broke. I decided I would show him exactly what I was capable of, not by seeking his approval anymore, but by systematically dismantling the company he valued more than his own son. I deferred Princeton and got a job in the mailroom at Blackwell Investments, one of my father's competitors, using my mother's maiden name. When I told him about deferring college for work experience, his reaction was predictably dismissive. "Running away from real challenge as usual," he said. "A mail clerk at Blackwell? That second-rate outfit? I suppose it's fitting. A mediocre firm for mediocre talent." At Blackwell, I threw myself into learning everything about the financial industry. Within 3 months, I transferred to the compliance department, studying regulatory frameworks while my supervisor, a former SEC investigator, taught me how violations were detected and prosecuted. Meanwhile, I cultivated relationships with young professionals from other firms, particularly disgruntled employees from Reeves Financial. Over drinks and coffee, they shared frustrations about working for my father, occasionally letting slip details about questionable business practices. I documented everything meticulously. Ryan, a junior analyst at Reeves, told me how my father demanded they fix the numbers before client meetings when returns didn't materialize naturally. Mia, a compliance officer, described how exceptions for important clients had become the rule, with threats against anyone who wouldn't play along. Within 2 years, I had compiled evidence of 8 serious regulatory violations at Reeves Financial, including commingling client funds, misleading performance reports, and manipulating transaction timing. Each violation could trigger devastating regulatory action. I created an anonymous email account and contacted an SEC investigator, providing comprehensive evidence of systematic misconduct. Within weeks, investigators arrived at Reeves Financial with subpoenas, throwing the company into chaos. As the investigation progressed, more violations surfaced. Former employees came forward with additional evidence. Clients withdrew funds as news spread. The stock price plummeted, and creditors grew nervous about the firm's stability. I watched my father's empire crumble while continuing my rise at Blackwell, facilitating major client transfers from his failing company to ours. Each account transfer was concrete evidence of the business acumen he'd always claimed I lacked. 6 months into the investigation, the SEC filed formal charges against Reeves Financial and my father personally for wire fraud, securities fraud, and fiduciary breaches spanning nearly a decade. The Wall Street Journal ran a devastating profile titled "The Emperor's New Clothes: How Alexander Reeves Built a Financial House of Cards." My father was devastated, his reputation destroyed, his company bankrupt, his social circle evaporated. When he was released on bail, I found him sitting in his dark office, surrounded by now meaningless awards and magazine covers. "It's all gone," he said without looking at me. "Everything I built, destroyed." Then understanding dawned in his eyes. "It was you," he whispered. "You did this to me." I held his gaze steadily. "You always said I lacked killer instinct, that I was too soft to succeed in your world." He stared at me with shock and something almost like respect. "You destroyed a billion-dollar company just to prove me wrong." "No," I corrected. "I exposed a corrupt organization that was breaking the law and harming clients. The fact that it was your company is just poetic justice." 3 days later, facing decades in prison, my father took a plea deal requiring full cooperation with investigators and a lifetime ban from the securities industry. The man who built his identity around being a financial genius was now known only as a sophisticated fraudster. I finally accepted my place at Princeton, graduating with honors before attending Princeton Law School. I focused on securities law with the goal of working for regulatory agencies that protected investors from people like my father. 5 years after he told me I'd never amount to anything, I graduated law school with honors and accepted a position at the SEC's enforcement division. My father, serving his 8-year sentence, received my graduation announcement in the mail. I never visited him, but occasionally sent career updates, each one a silent reminder of the potential he'd failed to see. The man who believed I would never amount to anything now had nothing but time to contemplate just how monumentally he had underestimated his son.